Okay, great. So, good afternoon, everybody. Again, thanks, Sam. Again, my name is Clayton Smith. I'm the Director of Business Development for Hubbell Lighting. I handle the Sonopar relationship for Hubbell Lighting nationally. On the phone with us as well, we have Kirk Chamberlain, who's the Regional Sales Manager, who's based out of Houston and covers the Texas and New Mexico market for Hubbell Lighting. As well as we have, as Martin said, we have royalty on the phone with us today. We also have Chris Rossi from Hubbell Inc. Chris Rossi handles the overall Sonopar relationship for all 80 plus Hubbell Inc. brands. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk us through SpectraClean. I'm going to talk about the technology, the applications, and some of the products associated with it. This is a product that Hubbell Lighting launched about a little over a year ago at Light Fair in Philadelphia, May of 2019. Really officially launched it about a year ago in July, and I've had tremendous success with it. So what I want to do is I just want to walk you through, like I said, the technology, some of the applications, and some of the products associated with it. So what really SpectraClean is, it's illumination with disinfection, right? So it is a 405 nanometer spectrum of light, which is really a violet in color that comes out of the LED fixtures in that narrow spectrum and destroys and breaks down pathogens over time. And I'm going to walk you through some of those pathogens here in a second. So from a food safety standpoint, it's proven effective on food poisoning, E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, Shigella, MRSA. So those are some of the pathogens that it affects from a food and safety standpoint. From a public standpoint, hygiene in public places, again, MRSA, staph, strep throat, various skin infections. So you can see there's a lot of different pathogens that this technology destroys and breaks down over time. This is a technology developed by the University of Strathclyde a few years ago in Scotland, and we have the license in the United States for food and beverage. There's another manufacturer that has it for healthcare and correctional facilities. Hubbell Lighting has this technology, the license for it in the United States for food and beverage. Everything else is really open game at this point. So when you talk about how the light affects and breaks down pathogens, what it does is it damages the oxygen inside the germs or the pathogen cells. So if you take a look at the screen there on the bottom right-hand side, we have germs in this Petri dish, and we covered up the left side of that Petri dish and exposed the right side of that Petri dish to the 405 nanometer spectrum of light. And over the course of time, what it does is it actually inactivates and breaks down those cells, so it destroys them and does not and prevents them from coming back, as long as that spectrum of light is on the germs itself and hitting the germs itself. So questions come up consistently. Is the 405 nanometer spectrum of light safe? So if you take a look at this 4 box I have on the right hand side of the screen, on the top left, no light is hitting that acrylic material, and it's not damaging the fixtures. On the bottom left, you just have your broad spectrum of light, your standard light. Over the course of 400 hours, it is not breaking down or destroying the cells in that acrylic. On the top right, it's exposed to the 405 nanometer spectrum of light over 400 hours. And again, it's not breaking down and destroying the cells inside of that material. And the bottom right, you can see what UVC has done to that material over 400 hours. I bring that up because there's a lot of conversation right now about UV and UVC and how it's effect on COVID. 405 nanometer spectrum of light is not effective on norovirus or COVID for that matter. So, but we have a whole list of other pathogens and germs that is effective. You're safe to be under this light 24/7. It does not affect people, pets, food. Does not break down material. So it's safe to be underneath 405 nanometer spectrum light or the SpectraClean technology. If you compare it to UVC, there is danger for being underneath the UVC. So that's something to keep in mind when you're out there talking to your customers, that SpectraClean is safe. And I'm going to show you the different types of modes of operation that and the different types of how the 405 nanometer spectrum light comes out of the fixtures, and give you some ideas on how you can use it in certain applications. So again, this is a safe way to destroy and break down pathogens, and it's safe to be in underneath the light or in the area of the light when it's actually disinfecting. Again, as Sam mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions, feel free to chime in, or feel free to use your chat function. I'm sure Sam will jump in and ask those questions for us. So, as I mentioned, this technology was developed by the University of Strathclyde, and there's tons of independent research documents supporting the claims that Hubbell Lighting is making. As you guys know, Hubbell Lighting has been around, or Hubbell's been around for 130 plus years. We're a very conservative company, so anything that we publish, we're going to make sure that it's accurate. And we have scores of independent research documents that back up all these claims. We have white papers on E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella that backs up what we're talking about here today on the call. So if you're ever in need of any of those white papers or those research documents, just feel free to reach out to any of us here at Hubbell, and we'll certainly be able to get you that information. So let's talk about the products we currently offer right now with the SpectraClean technology. This technology is being used in right now in our Columbia style fixtures, which LED style fixtures warranted for 5 years. So if you take a look at the left there, we have a center basket fixture. For those of you that are familiar with Hubbell Lighting and Columbia's products, that's our standard LCAT with the technology installed in it. And typically for a contemporary troffer or architectural looking troffer, you would use that typically in dining areas, classrooms, restrooms, any upscale area that you want to have an architectural look. That SCCT fixture, which is really our LCAT with the technology in it, would be able to do the job for you. The next fixtures are standard lensed acrylic prismatic troffer. So again, you could use those in back office areas, locker rooms, and hand wash areas. I'm listing some applications where that would be effective. The next product I'm showing you currently right there is our SpectraClean strip, which is our MPS strip, 4 foot or 8 foot in length. Again, you could use those in retail applications, closets, storage areas. And then on the right is our narrow and wide vapor tight, IP65, IP66 rated. So again, you can use those in wash down areas, food processing areas, cold storage areas. So those are currently the products we currently have out right now from a SpectraClean technology standpoint. We're looking at some other products, some vandal resistant products, some linear type products from Light Control that would also have this technology in it. But currently right now we're offering it in those 5 products. All those products come with various lumen outputs. If you guys are familiar with Columbia Lighting, we offer many different lumen packages. All of our drivers are 120 through 277, so universal volt. Again, it comes with that 5-year warranty. So all the terms and conditions are the same. This is just a different technology being used in our standard fixtures. So what type of application? So let's talk about a school for a second, whether it's K through 12 or whether it's at universities or whatever it happens to be. When you look at a school and you want to determine where you feel the most germs will be, it's really where there's anywhere there's going to be water, soil, or food. And I'm going to touch on that here in numerous slides as I come up. But if you look at the water fountain, with the kid drinking there at the water fountain, there's 2.7 million colony forming units in that space. So there's a lot of bacteria in that area. Cafeteria trays, faucets, whether they're in the kitchens or whether they're in the restrooms, your keyboard, even an animal cage, you're going to have at least 12,000 colony forming units in that space. So again, those are some of the areas where you could use this technology. You typically wouldn't need to use the technology in the whole facility. You really want to use it where there are germs and bacteria growing in that space. So as I mentioned, food, water, and soil, right? So on the left-hand side, you see an application there in a cafeteria. On the bottom, you have retail space. In the center, a shower in a school or a fitness center or a gym. Toward the bottom there is a drain. If you guys deal with any type of quick serve restaurants or worked in one for that matter, or worked in any type of food processing or visited food processing facilities, there's a lot of drains. They have a lot of water in it. And obviously they test a lot of times positive for Listeria. that is one area you definitely want to focus on when you're talking to your customers, is anywhere they have drains in their facility where there's a lot of water present, there's definitely going to be a lot of bacteria growing in that space. Again, on the top right there is a restroom facility where you would have obviously the sinks and whatnot to wash down, and the bottom there is just really a food prep area in a kitchen where again you're going to have a lot of germs growing because of water being present. So again, some of the risks in the specific applications, when you look at the food production and service side of it, whether it's a QSR or whether it's a food processing facility, Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, Shigella, MRSA, Bacillus, there's a lot of different pathogens in those applications. Commercial buildings, again, I mentioned, whether it's in the gymnasium or in the locker rooms, or in the cafeterias, strep, staph, Salmonella, E. coli, Shigella. And then again, in the athletic venues, as I mentioned, because there's a lot of body-to-body contact, a lot of sweating going on, you have a concern of strep, staph, and E. coli. So those are some specific pathogens in specific applications that you should be aware of when you're out there talking to your customer. So as I mentioned in the beginning, some of the risks that is effective on, it does not mitigate any type of risk. This is not effective on coronavirus, influenza, common cold, stomach flu, black mold. So those are some of the applications that it would not be effective on. Again, SpectraClean is supplementary. It is not to take the place of what you're just existingly doing right now from a cleaning standpoint. This is complementary, and it's an enhancement on what is already being done in the space. So before I get into the mode, do I have nodes of operation? Do I have any questions on the applications or the pathogens or germs that this destroys? Okay. So let's talk about the different modes of operation, and I'll talk about some of the applications as well while I'm going through the presentation. So this is a blended version of the 405 nanometer spectrum of light, which means it provides a white light, ambient light coming out of the fixture, but it's still disinfecting. Now it's going to be disinfecting at a much slower rate because it doesn't have that dedicated version, which I'm going to get onto into a second. So we've done a few QSRs around the country that are operate 24/7, and they've gone with this blended version just because they're going to be on all the time and they want some type of disinfecting going on. So think of an application where they're going to be up 24/7 or don't have a lot of time to switch it over, don't have a lot of off time to be able to switch it over to a dedicated version, which will be that purplish violet light. So again, this combines the 405 nanometer spectrum of light with white LEDs in the space. Again, this will be great for like a 24/7 type of application. So this is where we mix a couple different types of operations. So we have a blended plus version and an independent version. So the blended plus version would be, let's just use an example of if you have a facility where obviously we have restrooms in the facility. So when people are in the restroom, you have an occupancy sensor or a switch on the wall that when you walk into the space, it goes to that blended version where you have that white light. It's still disinfecting, but not at a high rate. And then when they're out of the space, when there's no occupancy in the space, it switches over to that dedicated version or that plus version. So it's just breaking down and destroying the pathogens at a much higher rate. We also offer it in what we call the independent version, where you would have the white light with no disinfecting going on. And then when you're out of the space, you would have a dedicated version or a plus version of that light coming out. So it's destroying again at a much higher rate. So again, different applications. Think of food processing where maybe they're in the space during the course of the day for 12 hours and they use a blended version or the independent version where they have that white light coming out. And when they're out of the space, it switches over to that dedicated mode. So again, you're going to be destroying and breaking down those pathogens at a much quicker pace. Again, you can use sensors or controls to manage those cycles. So again, a lot of different applications. The reason why we offer a blended plus and independent, the independent version tends to be a little bit cheaper than the blended plus version because we're not destroying and breaking down the pathogens in the independent mode. Okay. And then we offer just a dedicated version, which is constant 4 to 5 nanometer spectrum of light. So if you see over the right hand side, you have that violet purplish light coming out of the fixture. So it's constant on. So if you think of the old days when they had Spencer gift shops around, I'm not sure if they still even do, to be honest with you, but you go into a Spencer gift shop and it has like that blackish purplish light. Well, that's the mode that that's what this will look like when you're in the space. Now, you couldn't necessarily work underneath that, but I'll give you a couple applications where we've used this. There's a chip manufacturer that we did a job with about 6 months ago, and they have all the chips coming down the belts, and they have a 30-foot high ceiling, so they have standard LED white illuminated high bays in the ceiling. But over the drain areas towards the bottom of the belts, where there's a lot of moisture and whatnot, they put the wide vapor tights in the dedicated mode only down in that space. This application, they were using the facility about 18 hours at a time. So when they were in the space, they just had to stand the white light going, and when they were out of the space, they had the wide vapor tights at a much closer space to the drain, about 10 feet up above the drain, so it could destroy and break down those pathogens at a much quicker rate. So again, this is great. Using the dedicated version is great for areas where you want to provide that constant disinfecting light at that application. So again, really 4 different modes of operation we offer. The blended, which is white light, still disinfecting, but at a much slower rate. You have the independent and the blended plus. The blended plus being you're still disinfecting while you're in the space. You can't tell what's disinfecting. And when you're out of the space with controls, it goes to the dedicated mode. Or you have the independent version, which is the white light, and then switched to the dedicated version when you're out of the space. And then, of course, the dedicated version, which I just touched on. So those are currently the 4 modes of operation that we have. These types of fixtures, the blended and the independent, will have 2 drivers on them, so you can control them obviously separately. The dedicated version would have 1 driver, same with the blended version that I showed you originally. So how do you design for this? Well, number one, you want to design any type of application for the white light illumination first. So you want to determine how many foot candles you need on the space, what you're trying to illuminate, and you lay out that way originally first with the white light. The next thing you want to do is after you lay that out initially, you want to look at what you're trying to destroy and break down. You want to obviously understand how long the lights are going to be on in the dedicated mode or the blended plus mode, what your distance is going to be from the light source, how long it obviously it's going to be in that disinfection mode, all right, and obviously what you're trying to destroy over the course of time. So different bacteria, different pathogens take longer to destroy than others. So we want to be able to have a better understanding or have an understanding of exactly what you're trying to destroy in that space. Times typically range, as we have it on the screen here, about 6 hours to always on to destroy and break down those pathogens. Obviously, contamination events are not predictable, so the longer you can have it on that disinfectant cycle, the better off you're going to be. Now, we want to help you with these applications, with these layouts. So when you have opportunities, feel free to reach out to your local agent, to the local Hubbell person, in this case, Kirk Chamberlain, or myself. And we have application teams on staff, application people on staff that can certainly help you design your layout to make sure you're accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish in the space. So here's a couple real world examples. From a dairy standpoint, their primary risks are E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella, and staph. 66% of all dairy recalls were due to that pathogen in the space over a 3-year period. You can see Listeria and Salmonella are the top 2, with the E. coli coming real close there. So those are the typical applications you're going to see in the space when you're talking to your customer. So in this case, what we offered was a wide vapor tight at 16-foot mounting heights. We offered 2 in the independent mode. Again, the independent mode would be white light when they're actually in the space doing what they're doing. And then when they're out of the space, it switches off to that dedicated mode. Here's a facility that we did down in Florida. This is a yoga facility. And if you take a look at the picture on the right-hand side there on the bottom, and the bottom section there, that's where they do their yoga on their mats. And the red 2x2 boxes are blended plus modes, and then the gray boxes are just standard fixtures. So when they're in the space, they have the standard fixtures, which are standard LCATs, and then they have the red fixtures with the blended plus modes, which exactly look like the standard LCATs in the space, and they have those switched to the blended version of that. So when they're in the space, it's disinfecting, but not at a high rate, but they have the right illumination that they need to be able to do their yoga. And then when they're out of the space, they can turn off the standard LCATs and then switch on the SCCTs to the dedicated mode or the blended plus mode. So it's destroying the bacteria at a much higher rate. The same thing on the top where you have the dressing rooms and the restrooms. We have the blended plus versions in some areas, and then we have the standard LCATs in other areas. So when they're in the locker room or in the restroom, it goes to that blended plus mode, and then when they're out of the space, it goes to the dedicated mode. So again, that can be all controlled by controls. Again, a high school wrestling room, very similar to the yoga facility. Standard strip lights we'll put in that space, 56 of them at 9-foot mounting heights. When they're in the space, they have it on the blended mode, so it has the white ambient light, destroying and breaking down pathogens over time. And then in the blended plus mode, it's obviously destroying and breaking down the pathogens at a much quicker pace. And then from the school, a couple different areas in the school, as we mentioned in the beginning, you have restrooms, obviously cafeteria areas. So what they did was in the kitchen, they put the lens troffers, which, back office space in that blended plus. And then in the restrooms, they went with an architectural look, and they used the LCAT or that center basket style fixtures. Again, when they're in the space, they're going to be blended, and when they're out of the space, they're going to be the blended plus mode. So their primary pathogens they were concerned with MRSA, Staph, E. coli, Salmonella, Shigella, and Strep. So again, you don't typically need to use this in the whole school. You want to use it where it makes sense. You may want to put some of these types of fixtures over top of the water fountain that I mentioned, or where they have all their trays stacked up in the cafeteria. So there's certain areas that you may want to think about using this technology. And then just really putting it all together, you really want to focus on the areas where the germs grow. Food areas, food processing areas, water, anywhere there's water present, soil, think of restrooms. You want to choose the type of product you need in the space and what mode you want to use. Again, as I mentioned, you want to design for the ambient light first, and you want to obviously optimize that 4 to 5 nanometer spectrum of light as much as possible in the space to help destroy and break down pathogens. So that was about a 20-25 minute pass through on the presentation. But I just want to share with you, it's not effective on COVID. You really want to take a look at food and processing areas. So think of chicken plants and whatnot. Quick serve restaurants would be a key. We've done a couple, like I mentioned, that we're putting the blended plus modes in the kitchen areas, in the restrooms, in the break rooms. We didn't necessarily put it over where they're sitting down and having their meals in the restaurant. Really areas where over the beverage area where you get your drinks and whatnot, we put fixtures there as well. So again, different applications from that standpoint. So education, when you think of education, I mentioned restrooms, cafeterias, over the water fountains. If they have a gym or a fitness area in the school, you definitely want to think about that. From an office space area, their lunchrooms, if they have a lunchroom, their restrooms, their break rooms would be a good area as well. So there's a lot of different applications, but anywhere there's food, water, or soil present would be a good spot to think about SpectraClean. A couple other things here before I open it up for any type of questions. Let Hubbell help you with any type of opportunities. Like I said, we can help you with the layout and the design. We certainly will be willing to get on a call with you and your customer. Hopefully we can all get out there and start traveling. I know Texas is a little bit more open. I live in New Jersey. You guys are probably out there a little bit more than I am right now from a travel standpoint. But if you want to make end user calls, our agents are trained on it. Our Hubbell lighting salespeople are trained on it. They all have samples. They can all go through this presentation where they go through this version or a clip note version of it. We have sales tools to help you. We have a couple one-page flyers that help you walk through the steps of asking the questions. So think of a playbook tool to help you when you're trying to offer this technology. The nice thing about this technology is it's a little bit different than selling your typical lighting. And with all that concern right now with COVID and bacteria and pathogens and all that, this has really taken off for us. Our success in this product category has been huge over the past 6 months, and we're going to continue to see that grow. So let us help you from that standpoint. We'll be happy to get on a call with you and set up a call with you on a virtual call like this with your customer if you want. So feel free to reach out to any of us to set that up. And then I'll send some follow-up information to Sam. He already has most of it, but I'll send up a couple different things that I didn't send Sam yet that he can push out to you guys from that standpoint. But we're here to help you. One of the questions that come up every now and then is, what is the cost of this compared to your standard fixture? I always go back to a couple different things, right? So this is not a price sell. This is more of a solution sell, which is always a better sell, a better margin for everybody. But typically it's about a 3 times or 4 times your standard price of your standard fixture. So think about a 2x2 center basket fixture, what you pay, depending on what mode of operation you're going to be, it's going to be either a 3 or a 4x of your standard price. So that being said, Kurt, did I miss anything? Did you want to jump in here, Kurt?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, just a couple things, and thanks, Clayton. You did a good job with that. I just, one of the things that I like to say is when you go through so everybody understands, when you go through the slides and we go through this presentation, it seems like it's a pretty complicated thing we're talking about. And it's, when we're looking for sales and looking for applications, especially with everything going on right now, we all drive past a daycare center, church buildings, local gyms, somewhere where you walk in, and especially right now, you just feel kind of nasty. And those are the people we can talk to talk about this. It's not going to do the COVID, but there's still people taking more interest in getting things clean and taking care of that. So one of the things we can do, if you're doing 1-for-1 replacements, you've got somebody that they've got existing, they just want to change fixtures and have some kind of disinfection. For whatever reason, the number I always remember is MRSA. So if you're in a dedicated mode, so it stays purple all the time, it takes care of MRSA in about 8 to 9 hours. In the blended plus mode, it's about 12 hours. So if you've got an office conference room or an office break room or something like that, just go back in and replace the fixtures with that blended mode. Don't have to worry about fancy controls. You don't have to worry about anything else. It's just a 1-for-1 replacement. You've got constant disinfection. They're going to be on 12 hours, and we'll take care of that. So you don't have to try to make it more complicated than it is. As far as help, like Clayton said, let me know. Give me a call. Some of you have my information. Sam's got my contact info. Send me an email. Call me. I'm actually starting to travel again, so I'll be glad to go on sales calls with you. Send me your application, and we can send that up to our team in Greenville, and they can pop out suggestions as far as layouts and where to put stuff. And we try to make this as simple for you as possible. The main thing is, like Clayton said, don't be afraid to call us. I like getting out and talking about this. It's something different. And we get a pretty good reception when we go in and talk to people. And like I say, you're going out, every sales call you make, you're walking past places that you just feel a little jicky when you walk in, and whatever word you want to use, when you just feel like, everybody's washing their hands more anyhow. We've all walked out of those places where we feel like we need to wash our hands. But there's a lot of good applications for it. We've talked about, specifically in Houston, we put together a suggested stock list. I don't know exactly where that is now, but if it's something you guys are interested in stocking, we can work with you on that as well. So, and make some simple forms on that. So anybody's got any questions, feel free to give me a call.
One last thing that I'll say before, if there's any questions, Sam, you want to control that, I guess, but if there's any questions, feel free to jump in. But one thing I would tell you, this is a different type of sell. Typically the facility manager is not going to be involved in it. It's more going to be the health and safety inspector you're going to be talking to. And they have a great understanding of exactly the concerns they have in their space what pathogens they're concerned about. So they're typically the ones that you really want to try to talk to or get in front of. Also, they typically have testing kits that they use in their areas to test to see what type of bacteria is growing. We can certainly help you, though, if one of your customers does not have a test. We can sell you a test kit, a swab kit to assist with that, or we can refer you to the third party that supplies it to us. You might even have some. You guys might even sell some of those yourself. So, but typically you want to swab the area before you put an install in. We offer a trial program, a compare and the air type of program. So if you have an application where you want to put a couple of these fixtures in to try it out, we can certainly offer that as well. That's 120 days dating from the time of the order. So we ship it to you afraid aloud, have them install it, try it for 90, 120 days. If it works or when it works, they keep it and pay for it. If not, they can take it down, put it back in the cartons and send them back. So as you guys know, I'm sure you've done it if you've been in lighting for a while. Anytime you hang up a fixture, typically they're going to end up keeping it, right? They might not be the right application. They may move it somewhere else, but typically they're going to keep it. So getting fixtures installed on a trial program would certainly help with the sale. So that being said, Sam, I talked for about 30, 35 minutes. Let me open up to any type of questions the Crawford team might have.
Gotcha. Yeah, if anybody's got a question, just unmute yourself and ask. I actually have a random question, so excuse my ignorance here. So say if you have a classroom that might have a water fountain or a sink in the back wall, you don't necessarily have to have these products installed in the whole room, correct? You could just have maybe 3 or 4 fixtures all along the back wall, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's the way where you don't obviously don't need this because obviously they're more expensive, so they don't want to install them in the whole space. But if they have 2 water fountains in the back area, you want to install a couple of these fixtures, above the water fountain to make sure the light's actually hitting the space. But they look like all the other fixtures in the space, so you can have standard LCATs as an example, and then use the SCCT, which is the architectural looking fixture. It's the same fixture, it just has that technology inside of it. So you can certainly use that fixture in the space. So to your point, you can put 2 or 4 above the water fountains and keep the rest of the room just standard fixtures.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, sir. I guess one more elephant in the room question I have is there anything in R&D right now for something that could be strong enough to kill COVID?
They're talking about it, obviously UVC, and I mean it's not really it's not a safe type of way to do it. So we've talked about it. Obviously everybody's talking about it every time you go into Edison Report or some other lighting type of blog or something. Everybody's talking about UVC and all these products coming out. Hubbell's always been a conservative company. As I mentioned, it's not safe to be in the area with UVC, depending on how intense it is. So we've talked about it, but Sam, to be honest with you, I don't know if we're going to go down that road or not.
Understandable. Thank you. All right, yeah, well, if anybody else has got any questions, you can feel free to chime in. I see some purchasing and outside sales guys on the call. So yeah, if you got questions, just let me know or let us know.
Hey, Clayton, this is Donnie. I just have 2 questions. One, pre-purchase or pre-sale, sitting on the shelf, does this technology have any date code requirements or date code concerns? Can the technology go out of date? And second, in terms of components. And the second question is, once it's installed, I may have missed it, but I didn't hear you talk about decline of efficacy. How long does it continue to work? How do you know does the light go out when it stops working? How long does the UV work, and how do you gauge that?
So good questions here, Donnie. So the first question is that there's no shelf life. This is what we're doing is on the boards is adding a different style LED next to the standard LEDs, depending on the mode of operation. So you're going to have standard LEDs and a blended plus, and then you're going to have different 405 nanometer spectrum light LEDs on the board. There's no shelf life from that standpoint. It's not like a battery or anything like that. This is just different types of LEDs that we're using on the boards itself. From a standpoint of life, they're rated just like your standard LED products would be. So if we're rated L70 at 100,000 hours, same concept. It's not going to stop working. It's going to degrade over time, right? So if you understand how the L70, L80 type technology works, same scenario. So and they're all rated the same way. And as I mentioned in the beginning, they all have that 5-year warranty as well. So it's just like your standard LED fixtures from a technology standpoint.
Perfect. Thanks, sir.
Good questions.
guess if we don't have any more questions from the field here, we can give you guys back some time in the day. So thanks again, Chris and Kirk, or Clayton and Kirk. Appreciate this. I'll send an email out to everybody with your contact information again. So if guys have any questions, they can reach out to y'all with anything.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate you setting this up for us. Thanks to the Crawford team for spending 40 minutes with us today, and look forward to working with you guys down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you.